I choose you, person who will watch this video multiple times over uninterrupted. Please, 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 please. So, Pokemon is a franchise that is so unavoidably large that I feel like explaining it to you would almost qualify as insulting. But for the, statistically speaking, two people that don't know what I'm talking about, Pokemon is a franchise that started with two video games, Pokemon Red and Green, which released in Japan on February 27th, 1996. In it, you play a young protagonist attempting to catch various pocket monsters or Pokemon and raise them to battle against other Pokemon trainers to ultimately become the Pokemon master of your region. And since then, it has evolved into something that can only be described as inescapable. TV shows, movies, plush, trading cards, stores, theme parks, clothing, body spray, costumes that may or may not make you look sexy as hell. You are looking at peak male form, beloved viewers. All adding up to Pokemon currently being the largest media franchise in the world, having made over $115 billion in revenue. When it comes to pop culture, Pokemon is Big Daddy, and Big Daddy has a way of shifting said culture every time it makes a move. And naturally, when you have this widespread of an impact with every step you take, inevitably, you're gonna cause a couple earthquakes. Which leads us to today's video. Hi, my name is Blake. A lot of y'all think my name is Jake. It's not. Ask Professor Oak. I've told him it's Blake every single time. Although he does still ask me every time we run into each other if I'm a boy or a girl. Androgynous Queen. Like my other War Crimes videos, today I will be guiding you through 7 stories of absolute debauchery in the Pokemon community. But before I begin, we do have a few disclaimers. 1, a lot of people when I announced this video on my community tab were expecting this to be my first multi-hour project on my channel. And while unfortunately I cannot deliver on my first multi-hour project, I can deliver on this being my first multi-video project. See, normally when I post on my community tab asking for leads for my War Crimes videos, I usually get between like 500 and 700 comments. But when I ask for leads for this video, I received almost 3,000. I knew y'all were wanting this video, but I just didn't know how much. Meaning that there are far too many top-tier offenses to be able to put into a single video without it taking over 6 months to make, and mama needs to be able to pay her rent. So to put this all into simpler terms, welcome to part 1. Meaning that if you notice a glaring hole of a story that I have not covered in this video, put it in the comments because Diva, I'm not done. 2, for those of you with a discerning eye, yes, I am back in my old middle school to film this video. I'm back in Texas for my sister's wedding and once again needed a whiteboard. So shout out to my mom, Queen Donna, for letting me use my old middle school again, and shout out to Brenna. By the time this video goes up, she'll be married, so congratulations, you gorgeous Diva. Everyone tell her congratulations in the comments. And finally, number 3, I can all but guarantee there is not a single piece of documented Pokemon-related drama that has not been covered in excruciating detail on YouTube already. So if I make a small mistake and say something like Politoed only has 3 moles on his ass instead of the canonical 4, just be nice about it in the comments. Think of this as an interactive video. So with all of that out of the way, sit back, relax, grab a jelly-filled donut, and let's start with where it all began. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, after Pokemon's release, it eventually became a staple in the zeitgeist of basically the world. But what I neglected to mention was how quickly it became the cultural titan we now know. Pokemon's Western impact began in September of 1998, when both the anime and Pokemon Red and Blue came to North America in the same month. And you know how in 2021, Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo was the only song you were allowed to hear on the radio? Pokemon was like that, but on crack. Mounds and mounds of 1980s crack. Even though it didn't come out until September of that year, by the end of 1998, a term had already been coined. Pokemania. Lines outside stores for anything related to Pokemon. TV shows already making parodies of the franchise. And of course, the evergreen tale that you have a hit series on your hands, Concerned Parents.
In my opinion, parents should not let their kids watch Pokemon, play Pokemon, buy Pokemon cards, have anything whatsoever to do with Pokemon.
In a 1999 edition of TV Guide, Ask Your Parents, I'm not here to explain that to you, Pokemon was described as, quote, the Microsoft of kitty obsessions, towering darkly over all that came before, from Pog to Mutant Ninja Turtles, really aging myself knowing these references right now, to a quaint activity known as playing outside with something called a ball. The term touch grass has always existed for those with the ears to hear. Now, unfortunately for Pokemon, at the same time that it was gaining popularity, a hit new craze was sweeping the West, known as the Satanic Panic. Originating from the 1980s book Michelle Remembers, the Satanic Panic was basically this widespread theory that pretty much anything and everything that was popular was trying to brainwash children in order to abduct them for satanic rituals. Everybody always wants that 90s sound back in pop music, but when I start reading the Bible in reverse over a synth drum, suddenly I'm the problem. Whatever. But you guessed it, Pokemon was not immune to these accusations, and Lord, did some people run with it.
Pokemon world is a world of the demonic, of the satanic. But while you might not take it quite seriously, I assure you that demons take it quite seriously. Satan takes it quite seriously. Your children need to know there's a devil, and he hates them, and he wants to ruin their lives.
That same pastor would later go on to embezzle money from his church for painkillers, by the way. I guess the Holy Spirit alone just wasn't enough for him. But that pastor was not alone in this mindset. By the end of 1999, many churches had outright banned Pokemon, thinking it was a gateway drug to the occult. But how could people even think that about these adorable little creatures? How could you look this innocent Vaporeon in the face and think of anything even remotely deviant? Well, minus that one thing, but we're gonna get to it, don't worry. Well, I guess slightly to their credit, Pokemon did feature things such as ghost types, channelers, psychic powers, and worst of all, evolution. Oh. But if that does not convince you, then maybe this website from the 2000s called fillthevoid.org will. Many children believe they have power at their fingertips. The power to give commands. This is magic, and it is a very destructive power that will lead only into Satan's trap. And beloved viewers, I hate to tell you this, but it only escalates from here. In August of 1999, Grace Fellowship Church in Colorado held a demonstration to children ages 6 to 12. This demonstration included burning of collectible Pokemon trading cards with a blowtorch, the pastor swinging a sword with a 30-inch blade to strike a plastic Pokemon action figure laid on a table, and that pastor's 9-year-old son tearing the limbs and head off his own Pokemon doll. According to one account, the kids during the ceremony would chant things such as burn it, chop it up, chop it up. A bit morbid, but I can't deny the theatricality. Very Music Man of them. There's also a 9-page think piece written about Pokemon in this website that is still alive and chronically stuck in 2003, whose notable quotes include, "Of course, evolution is an anti-biblical science fiction concept with no more truth to it than Tinkerbell." Strong start. Strong start. We also have the disturbing idea of gathering these little monsters to empower yourself. This is the main point of the game. Thus, the entire game is a metaphor, perhaps more, for demonization. It is possible, though not provable, that many of these weird, cuddly creatures are actually named after demons. Most of the names seem harmless, but why take the risk? Look at Pokemon called Abra, an ancient magic term. This monster evolves into Kadabra. Get it? Abracadabra. And thence, literally have never seen that word used before. Good for him. Into Alakazam, another magic incantation. But what might be worse than all of that combined, Pokemon was accused of being horny. All Pokemon characters are either headstrong, stubborn, quibbling, self-centered, vindictive, obnoxious, hormonal, sexually preoccupied, evil, thieving, cross-dressing characters, and are definitely not role models. I mean, honestly, slay. The devil laughs with indescribable joy every time you or your child get involved in Pokemon. The hysteria had gotten so strong that eventually the Vatican itself had to get involved ahead of the Pokemon movie release in the year 2000. That year, Sat 2000, a TV station ran by the Vatican, gave its blessing to the Pokemon franchise, citing it as full of inventive imagination and based on ties of intense friendship. This was especially noble for the Vatican to do because at the time, Italian officials were terrified that the literal mafia was going to get involved in Pokemon, flooding the streets with counterfeit trading cards because they were so hard to get at the time. Again, Pokemania was insane. You just had to be there. Now, did this divine intervention convince all the naysayers that Pokemon is officially a blessed franchise? Absolutely not. There's always going to be fearmongers. Like this one in 2016, who claimed ISIS will use Pokemon Go to murder innocent Christians and spawn demons, says radio host Pastor. I've always thought that gay people have a tendency to be a bit dramatic sometimes, but they do not hold a candle to pastors in the entertainment field. But unfortunately for God's bravest warriors, they were not able to fight off the brainchild of Satan. Pokemon continues to grow and now 30 years later is bigger than ever. My streaming co-host Luis actually helped me research and write this particular story in the video, and I wanted to share with you the headcanon that he has, which is, quote, Game Freak designed Murkrow in Gen 2 specifically to spite these people. And I just think that's glorious. So now that we finished our first story, like every War Crimes video, I like to do a small minigame between each story to mix things up a little bit. In this game, I love to play God and decide where the offending participants in today's video will go once they meet their maker. Which of course reintroduces us to the Graphterlife. As you can see, the Graphterlife is your standard XY graph where we will be placing the participants in different quadrants and different spots within said quadrants. On the Y-axis, we have our standard heaven to hell. The Catholics have been making stories about this for years, baby. And on our X-axis, we'll be going from camp to dead serious. The two opposites, in my opinion. And starting with our example for dead serious, today I have chosen the car scene from Obsession. I'm not gonna spoil it, most of you have seen the movie anyway, but just know if you haven't, that scene in that movie, Dead serious. And our choice of the day for an example of camp is none other than the novel Model Land by Tyra Banks. The amount of information about this book that has been shown to me against my will by social media over the past 2 weeks has been life-changing. It's not that it's bad. It's that it's so bad that I can't stop thinking about it. Everything about this book bleeds camp, down to the song that Tyra Banks made specifically for it.
Hey, it's Tyra me, running in the Wash Street.
So as you can see, we now have our 4 quadrants: Camp Heaven, Camp Hell, Dead Serious Heaven, and Dead Serious Hell. So starting with our first story, ironically, Camp Heaven. Nobody was hurt, it was just funny as f. Now, Pokemon may have caught a satanic accusation or two, but you know what's absolutely heavenly? The sponsor of today's video, Vapor Epitaphs by Rowan Alexandria Bennett. All right, my divas, so here's the deal. So about a year ago, Rowan sponsored this channel for her trans-centered sci-fi novel, The Kindest Embrace If Firm Enough Can Suffocate. And because so many of you bought that book and loved it, she's back on the channel with her new novel, Vapor Epitaphs. Only this time we thought it'd be fun for you to hear from the author herself, so I interviewed Rowan and here's some highlights. Well, hi, Rowan.
Hello.
I am so excited you came back to this channel. Thank you so much for being a sponsor. It means the world to me and my followers who loved your last book.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, fan first, sponsor second.
Why not just give us a quick little elevator pitch? Who are you and what do they need to know about Vapor Epitaphs?
I'm Rowan. I am a therapist based out of California here. I focus on gender affirming care, so trans people like myself. I'm also an author. I write books to frankly help trans people feel less alone. So when the last evacuation shuttle from the dying Earth leaves and our hero Cress realizes she's alone, what does she do? She has to survive long enough to figure out how to keep the memories, the stories, the dreams of the people on the doomed planet alive. That's her whole goal. And there's a lovely T for T romance along the way. It is sci-fi. It's like post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It's set in a world that's dying about 200 years from now.
Vapor Epitaphs is now available for purchase. Check out the link in my description to get a fantastic story and support a wonderful author and friend of the channel. But of course, I couldn't finish our call without a very important question. What's your favorite Pokemon?
I was extremely happy when my favorite Pokemon won your Diva tournament.
No way, Milotic?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rowan. I'm so excited for you, for this book, and for everybody who's going to get to partake in reading it. Say goodbye to the audience, Rowan. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again so much, Rowan, for sponsoring this video. You will forever be a trans icon. Kind of like the main character in our next story. Happy Pride! Sorry I'm a few days late, although very gay culture of me to be late. So as we all know, Pokemon is a fairly wholesome game. Ignore the entire premise of this video. So naturally, when a game is wholesome, lighthearted, and relatively simple to beat, you're going to get competitive players microanalyzing the game to the point where they will inevitably meet an early grave. But lucky for these players, they do have an oasis known as Pokemon VGC. Pokemon VGC, which stands for Video Game Championships, is Nintendo and the Pokemon Company's official tournament circuit for the mainline Pokemon video games. When you're thinking of competitive Pokemon, you're most likely thinking of this. And when someone starts to research and learn about VGC tournaments, one of the names that you will undoubtedly run into is Wolf Glick. Wolf Glick for Pokemon tournament enthusiasts is kind of like Serena Williams for tennis watchers, Lionel Messi for soccer fans, Carly Rae Jepsen for me. I really like Carly Rae Jepsen. Wolf is the definition of a renowned VGC player. He's the 2-time national champion, the 2-time international champion, and the 2016 world champion. To a lot of players, this man's word is scripture. His theory crafting on team composition has frequently affected the meta of VGC. And full transparency, I am by no means an aficionado on anything related to VGC. I just think Lapras is pretty. But as previously stated, I am a friend of Carly, and this particular Wolf story breached containment and even reached my side of the Pokemon community, which apparently is the majority of the Pokemon community. Dear God, is it fruity. So it's April of 2024 at the Orlando Regional Pokemon VGC Tournament. Wolf has made it all the way to the finals and is now about to face his final opponent, Neil Patel. Now this match was already gonna get a little bit of extra attention, seeing as how it was the finals of the tournament, and by this point in time, Wolf had already made a name for himself in the Pokemon community. But it also got a little bit of extra attention for certainly not a good reason, because right before this matchup, a Discord message from Neil had unearthed and been posted on Twitter, stating, "To be honest, I support gay and lesbian. But I will never support people changing their gender. That's mental illness in my opinion. I would never voice that opinion though."
You need to leave!
And as previously stated, no matter what blue check bots on Twitter tell you, Pokemon has a disproportionately enormous queer audience. Like even a month ago, the Pokemon Company approved Pikachu making an appearance on the Culture Awards, the gayest award show in Hollywood. So you can imagine how well this went over by many a Gardevoir enthusiast. And just like that, before the match even began, Wolf had the pressure of not only himself wanting to win this match, but the pressure of the entire Pokemon queer community wanting him to absolutely dogwalk Neil. And boy, oh boy, was it an acrylic nail biter. In a best-of-3 style final, Wolf and Neil had each clinched one victory, and it was down to the final round. I'll spare you some of the details, but if you want a full recap of this final round, please go check out this video by the YouTuber Cecilily. She is both a friend and wonderful colleague of mine in this YouTube space and deserves all the eyes in the world on her tremendous work. But basically, the match comes down to Neil's Urshifu versus Wolf's Among Us. Now, 9 times out of 10, this would be considered a super easy win for Neil. Urshifu is an extremely powerful offensive Pokemon, and Among Us was being used on Wolf's team as a defensive support. But there was a small chance for this Pokemon. You see, Among Us has an ability called Spore, which has a 100% chance of putting an enemy Pokemon to sleep. So in theory, if Urshifu stays asleep for 3 rounds, the best case scenario for Spore, Among Us just might have enough time to get Urshifu's health down to 0. And after a few rounds of this, it looks like it's actually gonna work. Urshifu got put to sleep, and Among Us got it all the way down to 6 health. If it can just stay asleep for 1 more round, Wolf wins the tournament. If not, it'll wake up, use close combat, which is almost for sure going to wipe out Among Us in 1 round, and Neil wins. And beloved viewers, what happens but the worst case scenario?
Will it wake up again? This is the turn that will decide your Orlando Regional Champion!
Yes, the bipedal bear does in fact wake up and uses close combat, so unfortunately, all is lost. And
it is the Urshifu close combat instead of Among Us! It holds on! It holds.
Sometimes life follows Shakespearean comedies to the T, and it just lights my heart ablaze. Somehow the spirit of Marsha P. Johnson took over Among Us and said, this is more than a Pokemon tournament. This is a statement, and I will live to make that statement. Our favorite little mushroom held on with just a sliver of health and was able to sludge bomb Wolf into a regional victory. Oh. And the reception was glorious. Memes, articles, videos. With that single sludge bomb, Among Us was thrust almost immediately into trans icon status in the Pokemon community, to the point where Wolf himself has acknowledged and even joked about the trans icon title. Before researching this video, I literally thought that Among Us was canonically trans because of how much people were talking about it. Like, there's literally a trans Pokemon in the game, but my brain, when I hear trans Pokemon, still thinks of Among Us. And as a little extra victory, Neil did eventually post an apology for the people hurt by his message, apologizing for his transphobia and saying that he was leaving the Pokemon community as well as YouTube and would be focusing in the future on counseling and working on himself and his mental health. And I'm not trans, so it's not exactly my place to accept or refuse this apology, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion about the situation anyway, but if there's one thing I hope you all take away from this story, it's mess with trans, catch these hands. And that, my friends, is how you get yourself into dead serious heaven, a very rare afterlife to achieve in these videos. God, we truly love to see a trans icon transition into greatness. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's time to transition into the next story. Sorry, I couldn't come up with a better segue than that. So as we all know by now, the Pokemon anime was basically an instant success. And with that success comes a lot of eyes on it. A lot of young, susceptible eyes in the case of Pokemon. And you would think that would make the creators of the anime more on their guard to avoid any and all controversy. And to their credit, they certainly tried. For 17 episodes. Oh, but boy, did they fail. In the first 38 episodes of the anime, 4 of those episodes are banned. It has a 10.5% ban rate up until this point. So I figured for this section, why not bring back the Dance Moms style pyramid, showcasing the most iconic banned episodes in the series.
JoJo! Have you learned nothing?
And before I present these, I would like it to be known that these are ranked by how much I knew about them before researching. That is the only deciding factor. The only deciding factor, okay? I say this because I don't want people thinking I'm ranking this by severity of mistake and fighting in the comments on if it's worse to be racist or to send a bunch of kids to the hospital. Unfortunately, that is relevant for this pyramid. Starting with the racism part, at number 6, we have the banned Jynx episodes. See, the Jynx we know today is a purple-skinned ice-type diva who your gay friend that weighs under 120 pounds is undoubtedly obsessed with. That's not a joke, by the way. Ask that twink right now and he'll confirm. But Jynx back in the day used to have pitch black skin and more exaggerated features, so she looked a lot more like the old Facebook photos of like 20% of politicians on Halloween for some reason. But to put it in more explicit terms, a lot of articles and viewers felt that the Pokemon bore a striking resemblance to the blackface actors from over over a century ago. So before her redesign, Jinx was the main character in approximately 4 episodes of Pokemon, particularly the one called Holiday Hijinks. But seeing as she was such a pivotal character in this story, the episode was all but wiped from the Pokemon Company's online footprint. There is no racism in Pokemon, there is no war in Ba Sing Se. Those 3 other episodes would also be cut for the same reason, and future episodes would have Jinx's cameos edited out. And because of this controversy, to this day, Jinx has very rarely appeared in the anime. And you would think this would have been a learning lesson. But you'd be so wrong, because they would go on to make the same mistake many, many years later. See, March 1st, 2018 marked the release of episode 64 of Pokemon Sun and Moon, entitled Ash and Passimian, A Touchdown of Friendship, which aired in Japan and literally nowhere else. Because in this episode, Ash decided it would be a great idea to disguise himself as a Passimian and... Ash, I simply cannot defend you on this one. If the shooters come, the shooters come. And interestingly enough, the shooters did come for Ash in episode 35 entitled The Legend of Dratini. This episode aired on November 25th, 1997 in Japan, and again, literally nowhere else. Because in this episode, Ash and the gang are challenged by Team Rocket to see who can catch the most Pokemon in the famous Safari Zone. During that time, at one point in the episode, Kaiser, the owner of the Safari Zone, points a gun directly at Ash Ketchum's head. See, in Japan, this would be considered outrageous and funny because of how rare gun violence is there. In America, well... So when 4Kids got this episode to dub, which we know they received because their PokeRap edit uses some of the footage, they immediately turned it down, and to this day, there has never been an English dub of this episode. And this posed a particular problem because this is the episode where Ash famously catches 30 Tauros in order to win the competition, and 4Kids just skipped it. So for many a child, they were left wondering how the f did Ash get 30 Tauros? And coming in at number 4, we have, surprise, the exact same episode 34, The Legend of Dratini. Because in this exact same episode, Team Rocket interrogates Kaiser in order to get the location of the Dratini they're looking for in the Safari Zone. But the artist styled Meowth in a way that many considered to be very similar to that one dictator that Kanye was really into for a while there. And just like that, we have officially hit our war criminal quota for the video, making this officially not clickbait. I can't stop winning! But you know what they say, ban my episode once, shame on you. Ban my episode twice, I undoubtedly need to take a class on geopolitics. And speaking of geopolitics, our next entry is episode 19, Tentacool and Tentacruel. In this episode, a hotel is being built in the ocean, disturbing the local sea life. And in response, a plethora of Tentacool and Tentacruel start attacking the nearby boats and construction workers. One thing leads to another, and eventually one of the Tentacool evolve into a massive Tentacruel and start attacking the local city. In fact, one of those shots is used in the iconic original intro of Pokemon. Now, while this episode aired in 1998, a few years later, a fairly important date in American history would make itself known.
9/11.
Yes, on September 11th, 2001, the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda would attack the World Trade Center, causing them to collapse. And if you weren't around, or for that matter, even born yet to experience post-9/11 America, people were on edge for years. Like, people make jokes about it now, sure, it's been 25 years, that's bound to happen. But for the first decade or so, if you even alluded to this without the highest form of respect, it was considered a major taboo.
It does help to talk about September 11th. Even though it was a year ago, it seems like it happened yesterday.
If you had heard me last year, that's all I would have been talking about.
So you can imagine why showing a city having its buildings toppled over would be an episode of a children's cartoon that everyone agreed would be best to just avoid for a bit. So the episode was pulled from 4Kids and would not make a reappearance until years later on Cartoon Network, only to be pulled again in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina because it also showcases a town being flooded. God, this episode cannot catch a break. So this was episode 19, but what if I told you that episode 18 was also banned? Because that's exactly what happened to the iconic episode Beauty and the Beach. In this episode, Misty joins a beach beauty contest which involves wearing swimsuits. Team Rocket is hired to interfere with this competition, and James cross-dresses attempting to win. And to the shock of probably no one who's ever watched the series, oh my god, did this diva commit. Because James goes the extra mile and dons an inflatable chest piece and bikini. And frankly, at the end of the day, fierce is fierce, honey. I hope people weren't expecting coffee in this video because that body is tea. But unsurprisingly, because of the cross-dressing and the fondling being shown towards James honker-donkers, and because everyone's a f***ing coward, there I said it, the episode was initially banned in America. Originally, this was considered a lost episode, but with some editing slash deboobing, it would go on to later air with an English dub. The episode aired only twice on WB and has zero mention of it on Pokemon.com. They really said James cover up. And I guess I get it. At the end of the day, it is a kid's show. But if someone could please recreate James cutting the f*** out in drag, please film it and please tag me. Apparently in the original Japanese, there's also a scene where an older man tells Misty that he's looking forward to her in 8 years because she's 10 years old. In the English dub, he just tells her that she reminds him of his wife, but dear God, between this and the gun episode, when it rains, it pours in that writer's room. But nothing could prepare them for the backlash they would receive from episode 38, Cyber Soldier Porygon. When I say this episode is infamous, I mean infamous. There is almost no way you don't already know this story, but if you are that rare case, then buckle the f up. So in this episode, Team Rocket puts a computer virus in the Pokemon transfer system that's used at Pokemon centers. This was being done in order for them to steal Pokemon that were being transferred between the centers. So Ash and the team go into cyberspace and fight off Team Rocket and eventually win the day. Now in earlier seasons, the usual way that Ash would win against Team Rocket is for his Pikachu to use a massive electrical attack, and this episode was no exception. But between the setting they drew for cyberspace and Pikachu's attack, it was the perfect storm. See, an estimated 1 in 4,000 people suffer from PSE, or photosensitive epilepsy, and people with PSE are at risk of going into seizures when subjected to bright strobing lights. This is why you typically see warnings not to sit too close to the TV and to watch it in a brightly lit room for animated shows. And what happens in this episode is literally the reason the warning exists. See, this cyberspace was animated in a way where blue and red lights were flickering at a rate of 12 hertz over a 24 frames per second show. So couple that with Pikachu's electric attack, and they accidentally created a strobe effect that stayed on screen for over 4 seconds at one point. And those famous 4 seconds would go on to be known as the Pokemon Shock. Of the 4.6 million people watching this in Japan, 685 children had to be sent to the hospital, 2 of which had to stay there for over 2 weeks. It actually holds the Guinness World Record for most photosensitive epileptic seizures caused by a TV show. What can I say? My goat just keeps grabbing titles. So because of this incident, obviously the episode is banned worldwide, but it's also officially considered non-existent for any marketing outside of Japan. There are no seizures in Ba Sing Se. The Pokemon anime also went on hold for 4 months, and Porygon Z and Porygon 2 have never made an appearance in the anime because of this exact episode. But on a personal note, I would also like to request that you get off my girl Porygon's back. Porygon is always the one associated with this incident, even though Porygon didn't do Pikachu is the one doing all the flashy moves, but they couldn't do anything to punish Pikachu because Pikachu's the cover girl. And the Pokemon Company even agrees with me. In September of 2020, the English International Pokemon Twitter page posted, Porygon did nothing wrong. They said, might I suggest you don't f with my sis. I don't like the optics of Blake put the seizure episode into camp, so dead serious hell you go. Now, much like these banned episodes, what if I told you there was a banned Pokemon who would have a field day in a Call of Duty lobby? So Pokemon has always been the type of game that likes to keep up with the times, excluding certain graphical things that people have definite opinions on, but we're gonna say that for another video. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they gave us the Pokewalker after Tamagotchis had a huge renaissance. Most recently, we got Pokopia after everyone realized that only 95% of video games had the ability to farm crops. But before any of that, Pokemon had one specific gimmick built into Diamond and Pearl for a singular Pokemon, Chatot. So Gen 4 was the first Pokemon game for the Nintendo DS. And back in this era, if you wanted Nintendo to promote the out of your game, you were going to go along with their gimmicks. The ones for the DS specifically being the dual screen, the touchpad, and most importantly for this one, the microphone. Like how Nintendogs would make you use the microphone to call over your stupid dog that would never come over. But I digress. The makers of Diamond and Pearl decided that the DS microphone would be used with their Pokemon Chatot via its move Chatter. Chatter was a move that would deal damage to the opposing Pokemon and also give it a percentage chance of being confused. But the gimmick was that they allowed you to use a soundbite of your voice to attach to the move where every time it was used, the soundbite would play. And because Pokemon knows their fans so well, depending on how loud you were in the soundbite, it would increase the move's chance of causing confusion. If you were a shy little ooh-woo cinnamon roll basking in the warmth of your MacBook screen scrolling through Tumblr at 3:30 a.m., you had a 1% chance of causing confusion. But if you were a theater kid who equated yelling with good acting, your soundbite would have a 31% chance of confusing the Pokemon. Now, clearly, this already made Chatter extremely memorable, a move that changes based on your input and puts a little bit of yourself into the game. But this move would go on to make an even bigger impression because it made Chatot the first non-legendary Pokemon to ever be banned from competitive play. See, in Pokemon VGC, every season, there is a list of Pokemon that are not allowed to be used. Usually, these Pokemon are banned because they're either too powerful or they're too difficult to attain. And Chatot was fairly easy to catch, so it simply must have been too powerful of a Pokemon to compete, right? Well, in Chatot's case, it's actually a secret third thing. You probably know where this is going already, but just in case, I'm gonna spell it out for you. See, we know now that Chatter uses a personalized soundbite, but what I neglected to mention is that it would take any soundbite. Any soundbite. So I'm sure you could imagine the shock and awe from children who would play against somebody using Chatot and it comes to the field like so. Pikachu, I choose you! Not very original, but okay. Pika-Pee, I'm Pikachu, let's go, or whatever. I choose you, Chatot! What's up, you f***ing loser? How long did it take you to get off your prolapse asshole to play this fat-ass, loser-ass Pokemon. I'm just gonna start saying slurs now. Okay, realistically, I think you got like 1 second max to record your soundbite. But I do like to envision a world where there's no time limit, and every time chatter is used, they have to sit through that. But even with only 1 second to record, that was plenty of time for people to say certain words that would immediately get me deplatformed on YouTube. And understandably so. More like Chad Todd, am I right? Says the most divorced man you've ever met. So in order to avoid Pokemon tournaments turning into Slur City, Chad Todd was eventually banned in both 2011 and 2013, making it the first Pokemon to ever be bi-sistered. But after a quick fix and probably a ukulele apology video somewhere along the way, chatter was changed to a 100% confusion chance and removed any and all Sonic input from the player. This meant Chatot was allowed back into the official Pokemon tournaments and would go on to be used literally almost never. At the end of the day, it's just a pretty bird with not very good stats. At least that's what my competitive friends tell me. Again, I'm not very educated on this side of Pokemon. I guess it's up to debate as to whether Chatot has the pass, but no matter what, it's funny as hell. Now, Chatot might have hurt people's feelings with its words, but it could have been much worse. It could have hurt people with devastating physical injuries, like the culprit of our next section. So question to everyone watching this video. When you hear the phrase Pokemon on your phone, what is the first game that comes to mind? That's right, Pokemon Unite, the best MOBA ever made if you truly hate yourself. Just kidding, a lot of people don't even know that game exists. I'm obviously talking about Hillary Clinton's favorite app.
Pokemon Go.
Yes, Pokemon Go came out on July 6, 2016, and there were a few more people playing it than just Hillary. In just 2 months after its release, Pokemon Go had been downloaded over 500 million times. And because of how Pokemon Go works, going to real-life locations to catch various types of Pokemon, this was not only a phenomenon you could see through numbers, you could see it simply by going outside, the natural predator of the average Pokemon fan. People in Taiwan stopping traffic to catch a Snorlax, New Yorkers abandoning their cars for a chance at owning a Vaporeon. And because of this influx of human interaction and sense of community, for many a person, the summer of 2016 is considered peak human existence. Well, that and the fact that it was the last summer before Trump decided to become a global menace.
Pokemon go to the polls.
But I can confirm this Pokemon Go craze. Hell, I was part of it. That summer, I was at an opera program with 0 cell signal. So half of us after rehearsals would drive 20 minutes into town just to wander around a gas station parking lot at 9:30 p.m. trying to catch Pokemon. We could have been killed. Which leads to the topic of this section of the video. You see, the problem with playing a game outside is that sometimes outside is mean. Some areas of your town are statistically more dangerous than others. Some roads should not be crossed without extreme attention. And some Pokemon fans you never want to meet in real life, or even worse, piss off. And those are just a few examples from the very real and very still up website known as PokemonGoDeathTracker.com. This website acts as a database of documented occurrences of injury, death, violence, and extreme coincidences, all brought about by Pokemon Go, with links to articles discussing said occurrences. And since this is easily one of the most insane websites to ever cross my path, I figured what better way to make use of it than to compile a list of the wildest things I saw on it. So introducing to you the 10 most insane Pokemon Go related incidents that I can monetizationally discuss on YouTube. Now, out of respect to the people involved in these stories, I'm not covering any deaths because frankly, I didn't want to kill the comedic vibe of this video. But honestly, most of those just involve people walking into traffic while playing Pokemon Go, or even worse, playing Pokemon Go while driving in traffic. But if you want to dive into more of those, the website is in my description, so have fun, I guess. But anyway, let us begin. Starting off with number 10, we have Pokemon Go streamer mugged live on Twitch. Self-explanatory, while playing Pokemon Go around town, the streamer RickyBot was punched in the face and robbed in Central Park at 12:30 a.m. while trying to get a Snorlax. And I don't blame him for not knowing this, but I'm just gonna treat this like a learning experience for anybody that might be interested in living in New York one day. It is common knowledge among any resident there, do not go into Central Park after sundown. This was inevitable. And what's even worse than that is that this stream was RickyBot's 9th stream ever. Although to be fair, I do know many a Twitch streamer that would gladly take a punch to the face to have their channel blow up like this, so I guess good on you, Ricky, for that. Coming in at number 9, we have Pokemon Go player bit by real snake in North Texas Park. Self-explanatory, but I do adore that they had to put in the words real snake as if people were going to assume an Ekans did it or something. And at number 8, we have Pokemon Go leads man with warrant to police. Yes, within the first 2 weeks of Pokemon Go existing, a man by the name of William Wilcox rode his bike to the local police department of his town in Michigan because the department's flagpole was a designated gym. Many of the cops on duty recognized him immediately as being on their wanted list for breaking and entering and failure to appear in court, and he was immediately arrested. Listen, Pokemon fans have been self-reporting for ages, but this really brings it to a whole new level. Next up, and I hope I get all the words right, Angry Church Seagull keeps attacking me and all I want to do is play Pokemon Go, says Devin Man, which is made even funnier when you read the tagline under the title, which says, quote, Jonathan has been told his balding head could be to blame for the winged assaults. I've heard of kicking someone while they're down, but I don't think I've ever experienced curb stomping someone while they're down. Coming in at number 6, we have Wyoming teen playing new Pokemon game on phone discovers body. While searching for a Pokestop, a 19-year-old accidentally stumbled upon a dead body floating in the Wyoming River. And I hate to break it to y'all, but Gotta Catch 'Em All does in fact include catching trauma. God forbid somebody be a completionist. Also hilarious that they didn't use a picture of Pokemon Go. Like, research is your literal one job. And coming in at number 5, we have Pokemon Go players fall off 90-foot ocean bluff. Apparently there was a fence that literally said, do not go past this, the cliff here is unstable, and they just went past it because they wanted the Pokemon on the other side. Glad they're okay, but they are really not helping the stereotype that Pokemon fans cannot read. Coming in at number 4, we have 3 men knifed after fight breaks out over popular mobile game in City Park. Apparently they were literally Pokemon Go rivals. I'm glad everyone's okay, but also the idea of Ash and Gary knifing it out in a public park is admittedly hilarious to me. Coming in at number 3, we have man has leg amputated after falling onto railway tracks while playing Pokemon Go. Self-explanatory. Sorry, dude. Moving on. So a lot of these are admittedly kind of brutal, so I wanted to end on 2 more positive ones. So here's just some weird coincidences that were also on that website. Coming in at number 2, we have famous spot turned Pokemon Go hotspot reports 0 deaths so far in 2017. In Japan, there is a popular natural landmark called Tojinbo, and because of the landmark's layout, it unfortunately became a very popular location for taking your own life. But because Pokemon Go decided that this would be a hotspot for catching Pokemon, it literally was always crowded. So because it was so crowded and lacked any opportunity for isolation, there were literally 0 deaths reported by the time this article came out in April of 2017. I know it's really dark, but the idea of being unable to do it because there's too many Pokemon fans around being loud and obnoxious is unfortunately really funny. And finally, we have Pokemon Go helps find missing man with dementia. Yes, in April of 2018, a Pokemon Go player by the name of Allison Hines ran into the missing Homer Howard while doing her daily Pokestop check in a park in Kentucky. While walking by, she waved at him, but noticed almost immediately that he seemed distressed. So she started talking with him, only to realize that he had been missing from his family in Ohio for over 24 hours. After this interaction, Homer was reunited with his family, and they even took the time to take a cute little photo together. Again, gotta catch 'em all does mean all, even missing family sometimes. Also, Ash has some fierce competition now. He can't even catch a Pidgey. These stories kind of run the gamut of severity, so I think I'm gonna put it in neutral hell. I think that feels right. Except for these 2 precious little angels. Serious heaven you go. I love them so much. I love this story so much. So while these stories might have been a bit morbid, at least this is the last time in this video we have to talk about anybody receiving bodily harm because of Pokemon. Except it's not. So hey Diva, you know how the pandemic ruined everything? Like ruined everything to the point where it's been mentioned in multiple entries of my war crime series? Well, guess what, beloved viewer? That era of human history is also the reason you can't even look at a pack of Pokemon cards in Walmart without getting your arm gnawed off by a 35-year-old man attempting to support his 3 kids with said pack. Unless you've been living under a rock, I think most people have become privy to the fact that Pokemon card collecting has become a hobby that is both expensive and dangerous. And why is that? Why is a 30-year-old card game suddenly the it girl all over again? Well, allow me to take you back in time to 6 years ago. You see, in March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, everyone was staying in their houses. Or at least the decent ones were. And of the people stuck in their houses, a large portion of them were millennials. And millennials, for reasons I am not qualified enough to discuss, besides the fact that I am one, have an exceptionally large tendency for nostalgia. This is why you'll commonly hear someone in their 30s say something like, music was better in the 2010s, even though it was literally all just this. And if there is one thing that millennials are overwhelmingly nostalgic about, it's Pokemon, particularly Pokemon cards. You see, in the 90s when the cards first came to North America, we all had them. I still have a box of them at my parents' house here in Texas. Side note, do not come to my parents' house attempting to get them. I do not care how long you've been supporting this channel. I will come at you with a bat. So between the boredom of being stuck at home, the baseline nostalgia, and the influx of money coming from government stimulus checks and unemployment, more and more people were slowly but surely starting to buy Pokemon cards as a hobby. Now, from what I've read, it seems like this has pretty innocent origins. It was genuinely just for the love of the game. But the problem began to make itself known when this increase in purchases started to raise the value of Pokemon cards, particularly the vintage ones. You know, the ones that nostalgic millennials wanted the most. And all of this, mind you, is coupled with the fact that the pandemic caused a massive economic downturn, one that we are still seeing the waves of today. And historically speaking, during times of economic uncertainty, a lot of people have a tendency to run to the big 3: drugs, alcohol, and the topic of today's conversation, gambling. See, for some reason, and I am notoriously not a gambler, so this has never made sense to me, a lot of people think that the best thing to do when you have no money is to risk whatever money you have left. And people can do this through standard gambling, such as casinos and sports betting, white-collar gambling, such as crypto, NFTs, and day trading, or you could do what I like to call uwu gambling, which is almost exclusively blind boxes, more blind boxes, and oh my god, so many blind boxes. Which leads us to the original blind boxes, trading card packs. Because of the rise in value of Pokemon cards, many a person saw this as their get-out-of-jail-free card from an unforgiving economy if they could just find the right card. And while this increasingly toxic ecosystem was slowly bubbling under the surface in the Pokemon community, the final catalyst that would launch it into the pestilence we know today would be none other than the pestilence of YouTube, Logan Paul. For those of you that don't know who Logan Paul is, I'll give you a quick crash course because any opportunity I get to rip on this chronic tourist, I will take in a heartbeat. Logan Paul is an ex-Vine star turned social media celebrity turned professional highball scam artist turned Lunchables competitor turned highly detested wrestler. Famously, one of his biggest scandals is that during a vlog of him terrorizing the people of Japan by visiting Japan, he went through their forest and found a dead body, filmed it, and posted it onto YouTube for his millions of child viewers to see. But because of his prolonged fame and because sometimes life is just so very, very unfair, Logan has survived his literal dozens of controversies and has amassed a net worth of over $100 million. So in October of 2020, because this man only likes things when lots and lots of other people like them, he decided to start filming himself opening Pokemon cards, starting with his first video entitled, "I bought a $200,000 box of Pokemon cards," which to date has over 10 million views. And from the success of that video, it absolutely snowballed. Streams of him opening the cards, videos of him opening increasingly expensive boxes, to the point where he eventually bought a PSA 10 perfect condition Pikachu Illustrator card, of which there are less than 50 credited to exist, to the tune of $4 million, along with the PSA 9 Pikachu Illustrator card he had already purchased for $1.275 million, meaning that his purchase came to a grand total of $5,275,000. His inevitable downfall one day is going to rival a Greek tragedy. His hubris is just so palpable. It should also be noted that this broke a Guinness World Record for the most expensive Pokemon card purchase in a private sale, which he filmed and immediately followed with,
"This is the coolest thing ever, but it's even cooler that you, yes, you at home, can own this card with me." Right into the plug. Right?
Clap if you think she should suffer.
Yes, because the grift literally never, ever ends. Logan came up with a plan to own 49% of the Illustrator card and allow various amounts of the remaining 51% of it to be purchased. And this would be done via his new business, Liquid Marketplace, a company that had over $2.7 million worth of investments put into it before abruptly shutting down due to an investigation by the Ontario Securities Commission and scamming a bunch of people out of their money. I don't really have time to get into all of it, but just know that Logan Paul is like the Mozart of scam artists on YouTube. But eventually, Logan would go on to sell this Pikachu Illustrator card in February of this year for $16.5 million. And during this 6-year journey, many a person would take inspiration and start getting into uwu gambling themselves. People have been making YouTube and Twitch channels solely based around opening card packs, which to their credit, kind of brilliant. You're already gonna have a chance of making money from the cards that you pull, but on top of that, you're now gonna make money from the ad revenue from people that like to watch this for some reason. It's not really my cup of tea, but I'm not gonna judge, I suppose. Although you are into gambling, just so you know, you're into gambling. And don't get me wrong, most things are fine in moderation. If you want to play a hand of blackjack or buy a little boo-boo, in the grand scheme of things, that's relatively harmless. But where I do start to have a problem with all of this is when it starts getting hostile, and it's hostile for the same reason that a view like this at the Ariana Grande tour is $800. Scalpers. There are countless videos of people harassing each other outside of stores waiting in line for Pokemon cards, reports of people stealing thousands of dollars worth of Pokemon cards like this story from literally 2 days ago, literal physical violence from people trying to get the most cards from a store, to the point where stores are beginning to remove trading card vending machines because they've become a hotspot for physical altercations. And unfortunately, in rare cases, it gets even more violent. In April this year in Santiago, Chile, 2 suspects were arrested for selling rare Pokemon cards online just a few days after a 20-year-old woman who had those exact same cards had gone missing and has still not been found. I think I speak for everyone watching this video when I say I hope for her safe return, or at the very least closure for her family. I am so sorry that people can be so horrible. And while this part might not be the saddest, what's the most pathetic is that now there's a bunch of kids that can't get Pokemon cards. And even if they can find available cards, half the time they're unaffordable because you've got stores like GameStop charging over triple the MSRP because of the high demand. And all of this is because Rick, the 45-year-old, who probably doesn't give money to homeless people because he sees it as as a free handout, is hoping that the Pokemon Company will pull him out of his lower middle class fate. And what's even more infuriating is that Rick probably doesn't even know how to play the card game. Like, I swear to God, if you're at least 14 years old, you should have to play a round of the game to prove that you know how it works before you're even allowed to buy a pack. Like, I know the word tourist gets thrown around so much now that it's kind of lost all meaning, but in this situation, this is peak tourism. Even from the source himself, Logan Paul has moved on from Pokemon cards now to manga. His big new collection fad is first editions of manga like One Piece, a series that he has been proven to know nothing about. So how does this resolve? Honestly, it hasn't yet, and it won't until this bubble inevitably bursts and Logan Paul faces a single consequence for any of the scams he's ever done. But until then, I'm going to optimistically hope that the next cards to blow up are the ones based on the 2003 anime Zatch Bell, because at least that came with a little book. I get that it's a fun hobby for most, but when you start throwing punches, you're gonna end up here, sorry to say. Now, before we get to our final story, and I am so sorry for what that's about to be, I wanted to add in a few stories to the afterlife that wouldn't warrant a full section, but are still worthy of note. So my lovely divas, let us commence the lightning round. First, Mr. Mime is Ash's dad. This is a long-running fan theory that since we've never seen Ash's dad in the anime, and his mom spends so much time with her Mr. Mime, we can only assume comedically that this is Ash's dad. And while this has definitely been disproven over time, that's not going to stop Pokemon fans because they can't read. Incredible, amazing, show-stopping, never change, love this theory, will ride with it until I die. And speaking of Pokemon fans being unable to read, that is the next entry in our lightning round. This long-standing stereotype of the Pokemon community stems from the many, many times that a Pokemon fan has critiqued a game, only to be immediately disproven by dialogue in the exact same game they're critiquing.
Thank you for teaching me all the letters. Now I can, what did you call it? Read?
Will never not be funny, will never not entertain me. Next up is the hashtag heard around the world. Pokemon tried to make a hashtag for their upcoming series, Pokemon Masters EX, and when put into a hashtag, it reads as Pokemon Master Sex. Funny, 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 camp, camp, camp. Next up, the Jelly Donut dub. In a 4Kids English dub of Pokemon, at one point, Brock pulls out a bunch of rice balls and
These donuts are great. Jelly filled are my favorite.
This is one of the longest standing jokes in the Pokemon community, and it holds a very special place in my heart. And also a special place in hell. I can't believe the writers of this show thought we were all that stupid. Next up, we have the canonically trans Pokemon. So basically, because of a coding error in Pokemon Ruby, Azurill has a 75% chance of being female, while its evolution, Marill, has a 50% chance. Meaning that if you evolve a female Azurill into a Marill, you have a 30% chance of it becoming male. Trans icon! Pokemon said Happy Pride Month before half the politicians we have, so good on them. And finally, we have a personal story, my first Pokemon. I've told this story before on this channel, but if there was ever a time to tell it again, it's now. Ruby was my first Pokemon game, and Torchic was my first Pokemon ever. And since I was 8 years old, and I saw that it was a fire type, I thought the most appropriate name for this Torchic would be Flamer. The call was coming from inside the house at such a young age. So that covers all our lightning round topics. I didn't want to do too many because I figured I'm probably going to do another video, so why waste them all in the first one? And I figured that since we've covered a lot of the bottom of the barrel of this community today, why not highlight some of the positive influences as well? So here's a quick list of Pokemon creators I've collaborated with and or enjoy watching that I think you should have on your radar. Delicious James is a duo that's had me on their channel multiple times for Pokemon-themed games. The Girly Pop Games host Pokemon competitions in a drag race style format. Cecilily creates masterful video essays, many of which focusing on both Pokemon and the queer experience. Real Shiny Stone is your go-to creator for all Pokemon edits of the brain rot variety.
Yes, Queen Skinny Legend Versace boots the house down.
Well, guess what, Mimi?
Koi J's Pokopia builds are some of the most committed I've ever seen. I actually built a Taco Bell with him and was blown away at the attention to detail. Robbie for short hosts various Pokemon-style game shows. Fawn literally invented the girly pop lock. If you like watching Nuzlocke, you're gonna love this. Bieber Koifish is a master of all things board game related and has used his art skills to integrate Pokemon into his games that he hosts for various YouTubers. And finally, Michael Lors has been streaming his Tomodachi Life playthrough and created an entire island of Pokemon-styled Miis. Shout out to these fantastic creators, and just like that, this video is now complete. We have no more stories left to tell. Oh, fuck. I am so sorry for the story I am about to tell. Here, I'm just gonna put these on, you'll be happier. Content warning, content warning, content warning. I know how some of you react to this story. I put it at the end of the video for a reason. You have been warned. So in the Pokemon community, there is a famous set of 5 words. 5 words that are so viscerally hated in the community of Pocket Monster enthusiasts that just uttering these 5 words will send a non-negligible amount of them into a vitriolic spiral. This is not a joke. Do not test the waters on this. You could get mierdered. And these 5 words, viewers, you've been warned. If you made it to this point, this is your own fault. These 5 words are, hey guys, did you know? To many, this is a fairly innocuous way to start a sentence. To those that know what I'm referencing, them's fatten words. Because these 5 words are the start of the most famous copy pasta in Pokemon history. Literally the Pokemon equivalent of, what the f did you just say to me, you little For a quick mise en scène, the copy pasta features Pokemon number 134 from Generation 1, Vaporeon. Easily one of the most popular evolutions and a personal favorite Pokemon of mine, as you can tell from this plushie, who will never hear the words I am uttering right now. So popular, in fact, that on December 4th, 2018, an anonymous user made a post on the VP Pokemon board of 4chan. And I could paraphrase the post, I could imply, but I feel like the only thing that could truly do it justice is to read it to you with some mild censoring. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have been warned. I am going to read this on camera. Apologies in advance to all of my viewers and all of my future employment opportunities. Hey guys, did you know that in terms of male human and female Pokemon breed, Beyonce, Vaporeon is the most compatible Pokemon for humans? Not only are they in the field egg group, which is mostly comprised of mammals, Vaporeon are an average of 3 feet 3 inches tall and 63.9 pounds. This means they're large enough to be able to handle human diva. And with their impressive base stats for HP and access to acid armor, you can be RuPaul with one. Due to their mostly water-based biology, there's no doubt in my mind that in Ariana, Vaporeon would be incredibly wet. Wendy Williams. So wet, Wendy Williams, that you could easily have sex slay with one for hours without getting sore. They can also learn the moves Attract, Baby Doll Eyes, Captivate, Charm, and Tail Whip, along with not having fur to hide Newtonian physics. So it'd be incredibly easy for one to get you in the mood. With their abilities Water Absorb and Hydration, they can easily recover from fatigue with enough water. No other Pokemon comes close to this level of compatibility. Also, fun fact, if you pull out enough, you can make your Vaporeon turn white. Vaporeon is literally built for human diva. Ungodly defense stat plus high HP pool plus acid armor means it can take Karl Marx all day, all shapes and sizes, and still Karl Marx for more. It just occurred to me that while writing this, I never actually said these words out loud, and now that it's happened, I do feel like my soul is slightly more hollow than a few minutes ago. Originally, this post didn't make a lot of waves, aside from what I can assume were a few aggressive side-eyes from other users, but it would receive a renaissance 4 months later, starting in April 2019 on the subreddit Unwholesome Memes, where an image of the text was posted in full. It would then be posted on r/dankmemes 10 days later with this edit of Dr. Phil. From there, it would make its occasional rounds, popping up here and there to a few unsuspecting victims. But 8 months later, on December 16th, 2019, a mere 9 days before Christmas, the VTuber Arcata Cutie would post a video reciting the copy pasta word for word on YouTube in a cute anime-style voice which would go on to receive 1.2 million views at the time of recording this video.
Hey guys! Did you know?
And from there on, this grouping of words would spread like wildfire. Popular online creators reacting to the cursed text, edits to the actual anime referencing the 4chan material, anti-memes attempting to make it even slightly wholesome.
Hey guys, did you know that in terms of water-based Pokemon, Vaporeon is the most cool?
Fan art after fan art after fan art that I cannot show even a pixel of if I want to make any ad revenue from this video. All I'll say about it is that it's extremely ironic that the Pokedex number for Vaporeon has the number 34 in it. There's literally an entry on the song lyric analysis website Genius of the Vaporeon copy pasta, which has a user correction on the line about turning Vaporeon white, which states, there is no evidence of this in the game or series. Listen, if you're gonna actually something, you might as well do it for the good of humanity. And worst of all, and I do mean worst of all, there are videos attempting to scientifically debunk that Vaporeon is the best Pokemon for guaranteeing your spot in hell. And to their credit, those in glass houses probably shouldn't be throwing stones, because Lord knows there are hours of video evidence of me thirsting over Machoke in Pokopia streams. But in my defense, at the very least, Machoke is bipedal, okay? I think many a person can hear me out on this. But believe me when I say, almost no one will hear you out if you are a Vaporeon copy pasta defender. And I will say, I don't think this is that big of a deal, because I do genuinely believe that most people are just committing to a bit. I'm about to get so many Sweet Summer Child comments in this video. But genuinely, truly, genuinely, cannot emphasize this enough. Even referencing this copy pasta in the simplest, smallest forms will send some people into a frenzy. I think it's mostly because they've just heard it so many times that they're frankly sick of it, and I do understand that. But there does come a point where a Pokemon starts to look too similar to like a dog or a cat that I could understand the genuine concern that some people have towards people interested in this copy pasta. And I can't speak for anybody. I don't know the purpose behind every single person using this copy pasta, but for the sake of your mental health. When in doubt, just assume it's a joke. I promise it will save you so much time and effort. Alrighty, we can take these headphones off now and you can remain in blissful ignorance, something that none of you can say now. I'm putting this here as an example. You have to stop being proud of using this. And just like that, we have finished another Graphterlife. I'm not shocked in the least of how many were camped because it's Pokemon, but nevertheless, I am still satisfied. Thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, my name is Blake. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. Otherwise, no part 2 for you. I'm not gonna threaten that. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a part 2. Speaking of, if there's any stories you really desperately want me to cover, please put it in the comments. I am looking for new leads as we speak. If you want to keep hearing my ramblings, I also stream on Twitch and YouTube Live and post edited VODs on that YouTube Live channel. I also have a podcast, Keep Me Young, where me and my co-host Heather try to keep each other culturally relevant by discussing pop culture topics. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. And thank you again to Rowan for sponsoring this video and for your remarkable book. Please check it out in the description. And of course, like every video, we have to end it with what have we learned? I think the moral of the story is that we have now learned that if you are a Pokemon enthusiast, you are most likely going to Pokemon Go to hell.